I should have seen it coming. The night Marcus told me we were done, the sky above Manhattan had turned that strange shade of violet that only appears before a storm. We stood in the doorway of the brownstone his parents had bought him, the one I'd helped him paint last summer, laughing as we got more color on ourselves than the walls. "You know I care about you, Arya." His voice was soft, apologetic, and somehow that made it worse. "But my family, they have expectations." I'd heard this speech before, from other men. Other relationships that crumbled the moment they learned about my father. "Your expectations, you mean?" I kept my voice steady, refused to let him see how his words carved into old wounds. "You knew about my past when we started dating. I thought I could handle it." Marcus ran his hand through his perfectly styled hair, the gesture he always made when he was uncomfortable. "But my mother did some research. Your father wasn't just involved with organized crime. Arya. He was Paolo Santoro's right hand before he turned witness. Do you understand what that means for my family's reputation?" Yes, I understood perfectly. My father had been a monster who became a coward. He'd chosen witness protection over his family, left my mother and me to pick up the pieces of his shattered loyalty. I was 8 when the men in dark suits came to our door, 12 when I changed my name, 24 now, and still paying for his sins. "My reputation," I said quietly, "is that I'm a nurse who works 60-hour weeks at Mount Sinai. I save lives, Marcus. I'm not my father. I know that, but perception is reality in my world." He stepped back, creating distance that felt like miles. "I'm sorry, Arya. I really am." The door closed with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the storm-scented air, feeling the first drops of rain on my skin. Then I turned and walked toward the subway station, my heels clicking against wet pavement in a rhythm that matched my racing thoughts. Perception is reality. The words followed me down the stairs, onto the platform, into the half-empty train car. I found a seat by the window and watched the city blur past, lights streaking like tears against the glass. I'd worked so hard to build a life separate from my father's legacy, changed my name from Santoro to Rivers, put myself through nursing school, kept my head down, my past buried, my heart carefully guarded. And still, it wasn't enough. The train lurched to a stop at Union Square. I should have gotten off. My apartment was a 10-minute walk from here, but I stayed seated, numb, letting the train carry me further downtown. By the time I finally stood, we were approaching the last stop in Lower Manhattan. The car had emptied except for me and a man in a dark suit sitting 3 rows back. I hadn't noticed him before, but now something about his stillness made my skin prickle. I stepped onto the platform just as my phone buzzed. A text from my friend Josie. "Emergency at the hospital. They need you for a trauma case. Can you come in?" I typed back quickly. "On my way. At least work I could control." At least there, I was valued for my skills, not judged for my bloodline. The platform was nearly deserted as I headed toward the exit. My footsteps echoed too loud in the tiled space, and that prickling sensation intensified. I glanced back. The man in the dark suit was following me. My heart kicked into a faster rhythm. Probably nothing. Probably just heading to the same exit. But my father's lessons, the ones he'd taught me before he disappeared, whispered in the back of my mind. Trust your instincts. Always know your exits. I quickened my pace. So did he. The exit stairs loomed ahead. I started up them, taking 2 at a time, my breath coming faster. Behind me, his footsteps matched mine, steady and deliberate. I burst out onto the street into chaos. 3 black SUVs were parked at angles, blocking traffic. Men in suits surrounded them, but these weren't police. The street lamps caught the gleam of weapons holstered beneath their jackets, and in the center of it all stood a man who made everything else fade into background noise. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and brutal beauty. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold, dark, intense, and fixed directly on me, with an attention that felt like being caught in a spotlight. The man who'd been following me stopped at my back. I was trapped between them, between the subway entrance and whatever violent tableau was unfolding on the street. "Sir," the man behind me spoke for the first time. "This is her, Arya Rivers, formerly Santoro." The world tilted. The man in the center, the one who commanded the space like a king surveying his kingdom, tilted his head slightly. His gaze traveled over me with an intensity that felt physical, assessing, calculating. Paolo Santoro's daughter. His voice was low, rough silk over granite. Not a question, a statement. The one who's been working at Mount Sinai under a new identity? Terror froze my blood. These were Mafia. They had to be. And they knew exactly who I was. I don't know what you want, I managed, proud that my voice only trembled slightly. But I'm not my father. I don't have anything to do with... He's been found. The man cut me off, taking a single step toward me. Just one. But the space between us felt electric. Your father. After 15 years in hiding, someone finally tracked him down. And now, there's a price on the head of everyone he ever loved. The rain was falling harder now, plastering my hair to my face, running down my neck. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. A price, I whispered. $5 million, offered by 3 different families who want revenge for his betrayal. He moved closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker gunpowder, perhaps, or simply danger. You're not safe, Arya. You haven't been safe since the moment your father's location leaked this morning. Then I'll go to the police. Witness protection is exactly where they'll look first. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. And based on the 2 assassination attempts made on other witnesses today, I'd say your father's old friends are very motivated. My legs were shaking. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. What do you want from me? He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Up close, he was even more devastating and more dangerous. There was violence written into every line of his body, but also control. Absolute control. I want to offer you a choice. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the armed men surrounding us. You can run, hide, hope you survive the next few weeks until they find you. Or... His hand rose, and I flinched. But he only brushed a strand of wet hair from my face, his touch surprisingly gentle. Or you accept my protection. You become mine publicly, permanently, completely. And anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me first. Why? The word barely made it past my lips. Why would you protect me? You don't even know me. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Something that looked almost like recognition. Because 15 years ago, your father saved my life before he turned witness. And because... He paused, his thumb tracing my jawline in a gesture that sent shivers down my spine. The man who just rejected you is the son of Judge Edward Hartwell, the same judge who signed the warrant that got my brother killed. My breath caught. So here's my offer, Arya Rivers. He leaned in close, his lips nearly brushing my ear. Become my fiancé. Let me keep you safe. And in return, you'll help me destroy the family that just threw you away. Thunder cracked overhead, loud as my fractured heartbeat. I don't even know your name, I breathed. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, and his smile was sharp as a blade. Dante Moretti. And as of tonight, you belong to me. The name hit me like a physical blow. Dante Moretti. Even I knew that name. And I'd spent 15 years trying to forget everything about my father's world. The Moretti family controlled half of New York's underground shipping, construction, real estate, that probably laundered more money than it earned. They were old blood, the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. And their heir apparent was standing in front of me, offering protection with one hand while holding a knife to my past with the other. I need time to think, I said, hating how my voice wavered. You have 30 seconds. Dante stepped back, sliding his hands into his pockets with casual grace. As if we were discussing dinner plans, not my survival. Because in approximately 3 minutes, a team hired by the Calabrese family will arrive at this location. They've been tracking you since you left your ex-boyfriend's apartment. My blood turned to ice. How do you... I own this city's shadows, Arya. I know everything that moves in the dark. His eyes never left mine. 20 seconds. I looked past him at the armed men, the black SUVs, the rain-slicked street that suddenly felt like a cage. Behind me, the subway entrance gaped like a mouth leading nowhere safe. Marcus's words echoed in my head. Perception is reality. Fine. If the world was going to see me as Paolo Santoro's daughter no matter what I did, maybe it was time to stop running from it. What exactly does becoming yours entail? I forced myself to meet Dante's gaze directly. Something flickered in his expression approval. Maybe. Or surprise. A public engagement. You'll move into my penthouse tonight. Appear at my side at... family functions and business dinners. Play the role of devoted fiancé until the threats against you are neutralized. And then you're free to go, with enough money to disappear properly this time, if that's what you want. He tilted his head slightly. Or you stay. That choice will be yours. 10 seconds, one of his men called out. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct screamed that this was insane, that accepting protection from a mafia boss was like jumping from a burning building into a shark tank. But the alternative was waiting here to die, or running blindly into a city where assassins already knew my face. At least with Dante Moretti, I'd see the danger coming. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I accept. The transformation was immediate. Dante's hand closed around my wrist, not rough, but absolutely firm, and he pulled me toward the nearest SUV. Get her inside. Now. I was ushered into the back seat before I could process what was happening. Dante slid. In beside me, his body a solid wall of heat and contained violence. The door slammed shut, and the vehicle was already moving before I could catch my breath. Through the tinted windows, I watched 3 motorcycles round the corner behind us, their riders dressed in black. Are those the Calabrese hitters? Yes. Dante's voice was calm, almost bored. He pressed a button on the panel beside him. Marco, lose them. Don't make it easy. The SUV accelerated hard enough to press me back against the leather seat. I gripped the door handle as we swerved through traffic, the driver navigating with precision that suggested military training. Behind us, the motorcycles gave chase, weaving between cars with reckless speed. They're going to get someone killed, I said, my nurse's instincts recoiling at the thought of civilian casualties. They're going to get themselves killed if they keep following. Dante pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I just sent their license plates and photos to the NYPD. They'll be pulled over in the next 4 blocks. I stared at him. You can do that? I told you. I own this city's shadows. He glanced at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. You're not what I expected, Aria Rivers. What did you expect? Someone more like your father. Calculating, cold, willing to sell out anyone to save themselves. He studied my face with unnerving intensity. But you're terrified right now, and you still asked about civilian casualties. Interesting. I'm a nurse. I took an oath to do no harm. And I'm a killer who took an oath to protect my family. His mouth curved into something that might have been a smile on a different face. We're going to make quite the pair. The SUV made a sharp turn into an underground parking garage. The motorcycles didn't follow. I caught a glimpse of flashing police lights in the distance. Dante had been right. He'd called in the law like a weapon. We descended into darkness, spiral after spiral, until we reached a private level marked only with a number, 13. The SUV stopped in front of an elevator with brushed steel doors. This is your building? I asked. One of them. Dante stepped out, then offered his hand to help me. I hesitated only a moment before taking it. His palm was warm, calloused in unexpected places, not the soft hands of a man who only gave orders. The penthouse is secure. No one gets in without my permission. The elevator required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. As we ascended, I caught our reflection in the mirrored walls. We looked like something from a movie, him in his expensive suit, dark and commanding, me in my rain-soaked dress, mascara probably smudged, looking young and lost and completely out of my depth. I need to call the hospital, I said, remembering Josie's text. They need me for a trauma case. Already handled. I had my attorney contact Mount Sinai with a family. Emergency. You're on leave effective immediately. I whirled to face him. You can't just... I can. I did. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. You're a target now, Aria. That means no predictable patterns, no public locations where you're vulnerable, including your job. Rage cut through my fear. That job is my life. I worked for 6 years to get that position, and you'll work 6 more after this is over, if that's what you want. He moved closer, backing me against the elevator wall. Not threatening, but absolutely commanding my space. But right now, your life is worth more than your career. Accept that, or this arrangement ends before it begins. I wanted to push back, to fight, but the weight of everything, Marcus's rejection, my father's resurfaced past, armed men hunting me through the city crashed over me all at once. My legs went weak. Dante's hand shot out, catching my elbow before I could fall. When did you last eat? Breakfast, I think, he muttered. Something in Italian that sounded like a curse. Of course. Come on. The elevator doors opened onto a foyer that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. Dante guided me inside with a hand on my lower back, his touch burning through the wet fabric of my dress. First, you eat. Then we talk about the rules. He paused, turning me to face him. And Arya, from this moment forward, you tell me everything. Every threat, every fear, every instinct that says something's wrong. Because if you die on my watch, your father's sacrifice means nothing. His words should have felt like a command. Instead, they felt almost like a promise. Why do you care? I whispered. Really? My father saved you 15 years ago. That's not enough reason to risk your life now. Dante's jaw tightened, something dark and complicated moving behind his eyes. Ask me that again when you're not about to collapse, he said softly. And maybe I'll tell you the truth. Dante's penthouse was a study in contradictions. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan like a kingdom laid out for conquest, but heavy curtains could transform it into a fortress with the pull of a cord. Modern art hung on walls painted in shades of charcoal and midnight blue, yet a bookshelf in the corner held worn volumes with cracked spines, actually read, not just displayed. Everything was expensive. Controlled. Perfect. Except for the piano. It sat in the corner near the windows. A grand piano with sheet music scattered across its surface. Not arranged, not organized. Just left there, as if someone had been playing and walked away mid-song. Sit. Dante guided me to a leather sofa that probably cost more than my car. I'll get food. He disappeared into what I assumed was the kitchen, leaving me alone in this temple of wealth and power. I should have felt afraid. Instead, I felt numb, hollowed out, like I was watching my life happen to someone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I heard what? Are you okay? I stared at the words, wondering how he'd heard anything so quickly. Then I remembered his father was a judge, probably had connections to every police scanner in the city. Before I could respond, the phone was plucked from my hands. No contact with anyone from your old life. Dante stood over me, reading the message with cold eyes. Especially not the judge's son. He's just concerned. He's a liability. Dante deleted the message, then went into my settings. I'm having my tech team sweep your phone for tracking software. Until then, you don't respond to anyone. You can't just control every aspect of my life. I can, and I will. That's the deal. He handed the phone back, then set a plate in front of me, pasta with what looked like homemade marinara, still steaming. The smell made my stomach clench with sudden, desperate hunger. Eat. I wanted to argue. But the food was there, and my body was screaming for fuel. And some part of me recognized that Dante was right. If someone wanted me dead, they could track me through my phone. The first bite was heaven. Rich. Perfectly seasoned. Nothing like the takeout I usually survived on. You made this? I asked between bites. My mother insisted all her sons learn to cook. Something shifted in his expression. There and gone too quickly to read. She said a man who can't feed himself is a man who can be controlled. I thought about that, about this dangerous, powerful man standing in a kitchen, making pasta. It didn't fit the image I'd built of him in my head. Where is she now? Your mother. Dead. Cancer. 3 years ago. Dante moved to the bar, poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. He didn't offer me any. My father followed her 6 months later. Heart attack, officially. Broken heart. Actually, the pain in his voice was so carefully controlled it almost sounded like absence. Almost. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be. They had 40 years together. That's more than most people in our world get. He took a long drink, his throat working. My brother Luca didn't even get 25. The brother who died because of Judge Hartwell's warrant. The real reason Dante wanted revenge on Marcus's family. What happened? I asked, even though I knew I was pushing into dangerous territory. Dante was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to the windows, staring out at the glittering city below. Luca was my younger brother, softer than me, kinder. He didn't have the stomach for the family business, so my father let him pursue art instead. He was talented, really talented. Had a gallery show planned, a future that didn't involve blood and bullets. His hand tightened on the glass. Then Judge Hartwell signed a warrant based on false testimony from a rival family. Claimed Luca was involved in a murder he didn't commit. The raid went wrong. Luca ran, and a trigger-happy cop shot him in the back. I set down my fork, appetite gone. Dante. He was 24, your age. He turned to face me, and the raw grief in his eyes stole my breath. And Judge Hartwell never faced consequences. Never even apologized. Just moved on to the next case, the next warrant, while my mother buried her youngest son. Understanding crashed over me. That's why you want Marcus to suffer. Not just his father, him too. The sins of the father. Dante's smile was sharp as broken glass. Isn't that what you've been living with? Your father's betrayal following you everywhere, destroying every relationship, every chance at normalcy. He was right. God help me, he was right. So what's your plan? I asked. I become your fiancé, and that somehow destroys Marcus? Marcus Hartwell is engaged in a run for district attorney. His entire campaign is built on family values, integrity, his father's legacy of justice. Dante moved closer, setting his glass down on the coffee table. Imagine the scandal when it comes out that he dumped his girlfriend, a nurse, no less. Practically a saint in the public eye because of her father's past. While she was vulnerable, I stepped in to protect her. The headlines write themselves. You want to ruin his political career. I want him to feel what it's like to lose something that matters, to watch his future crumble because of someone else's choices. He sat down beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. And yes, I want his father to watch it happen, to know that his son's downfall is because of the same self-righteous judgment that killed my brother. It was twisted, manipulative, using me as a weapon in a war I hadn't chosen. It was also exactly what Marcus deserved. There's something else, I said slowly, watching Dante's face. Something you're not telling me. You said my father saved your life 15 years ago. How? Dante's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he'd refuse to answer. Then he reached up, unbuttoning the top of his shirt to reveal a scar puckered, old, running from his collarbone toward his heart. I was 19, stupid, reckless, trying to prove myself to my father. Walked into an ambush without backup. His fingers traced the scar absently. I was bleeding out in an alley when Paolo Santoro found me. He could have left me there. Should have. Probably. Instead, he called for help. Stayed with me until the ambulance came. Probably saved my life. I stared at the scar. At this evidence of vulnerability on a man who seemed invincible. 2 weeks later, Dante continued. Your father turned witness. Destroyed half the families in New York with his testimony, including nearly destroying mine. He buttoned his shirt, hiding the scar again. I've spent 15 years trying to decide if I owe him a debt, or if I should hunt him down myself. And now? Now his daughter is sitting in my home, eating my food, looking at me like I'm either her salvation or her doom. His hand lifted, and I froze as his fingers brushed my cheek, wiping away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. And I still can't decide which I am. The touch was gentle, devastating. No one had touched me with gentleness since my mother died. No one had looked at me like I was worth protecting, worth saving. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Because you asked for the truth. His thumb traced my jaw, the same gesture from earlier, but this time it felt different. Less like claiming, more like discovering. And because if we're going to convince the world we're in love, we need to at least be honest with each other. My heart was racing, my skin burning where he touched me. This was dangerous. This was exactly how people got destroyed in stories like mine. But God, I was so tired of being careful. So tired of being judged. So tired of being alone. I have a condition, I said, proud that my voice stayed steady. Dante's eyes sharpened. Name it. When this is over, when Marcus is ruined, and the threats are gone, you tell me where my father is. The words hung between us like a detonation waiting to happen. Dante's hand fell away from my face. You want to find him. I want answers. I want to ask him why he left us. Why he chose witness protection over his family. My hands clenched into fists. And maybe, I want him to know that his daughter survived despite him. Something like respect flickered across Dante's features. Deal. But Arya? Yes? His smile was dark, promising. By the time this is over, you might not want to leave. The lights of the city glittered behind him like stars, and I realized I was falling into something I couldn't control. The question was whether I'd survive the landing. I woke to the sound of voices arguing in Italian. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was 8 years old again, listening to my father on the phone in the middle of the night. Then the silk sheets against my skin registered, along with the unfamiliar weight of expensive bedding, and Reality crashed back. Dante's penthouse. His guest room. My new prison disguised as sanctuary. I checked my phone, 6:47 a.m. I'd slept maybe 4 hours. My dreams fractured with images of motorcycles and gunfire, and dark eyes that saw too much. The arguing grew louder. I slipped out of bed, still wearing the t-shirt and sweatpants Dante had given me last night. My feet were silent on the hardwood as I crept toward the voices. Absolutely insane, Dante. The girl is a liability. A woman's voice, sharp with authority. The girl has a name, and she's under my protection. Dante's tone was ice. That's not up for debate, Isabella. I peered around the corner. Dante stood by the windows, fully dressed in another immaculate suit despite the early hour. Across from him stood a woman in her 30s, dark hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a pencil skirt and blazer that screamed power. She looked like she could kill someone with her Louboutins. Your protection? The woman Isabella laughed without humor. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're using Paolo Santoro's daughter as a pawn in your revenge fantasy against the Hartwells. Careful, Isabella. Dante's voice dropped to a register that made my skin prickle. You're my cousin, not my keeper. Someone needs to keep you from destroying everything our family built. She moved closer, her heels clicking sharply. The Calabrese family is already making noise. They see your protection of Arya as an insult, like you're protecting a traitor's bloodline. And the Russians? They're watching, waiting to see if you're weak. Let them watch. Dante turned back to the windows, dismissive. Anyone who wants to test me knows where to find me. This isn't just about you. Isabella's control cracked. We have soldiers, territories, business that depends on stability. You take in Paolo Santoro's daughter, and suddenly we look like we're siding with rats and witnesses. Do you understand what that does to our reputation? I understand perfectly. Dante's reflection in the glass was cold, remote. I also understand that I'm the head of this family, not you. The decision is made. Isabella was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost pleading. She's going to get you killed, Dante. Just like Luca, don't. The single word was a knife. Don't you dare compare this to Luca. Why not? You're making the same mistake, letting emotion override strategy. Luca trusted the wrong people, and he died for it. What happens when Arya betrays you? When her father's enemies use her to get to you? I should have stayed hidden. Should have let them finish their argument without my interference. But something about hearing my existence reduced to a tactical error made anger flare hot and bright in my chest. I stepped into the room. What happens is I prove I'm not my father. Both of them turned to me. Isabella's eyes raked over me with cold assessment. Dante's expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his gaze: approval, maybe, or surprise. Arya. He said my name like a statement of fact. This is my cousin, Isabella Moretti. She handles our legal operations. Legal operations. I moved further into the room, meeting Isabella's hostile stare directly. Is that what we're calling money laundering now? Isabella's eyebrow arched. The nurse has teeth. How charming. The nurse also has ears. I crossed my arms, refusing to be intimidated. And I understand your concern. I'm Paolo Santoro's daughter, a liability by birth. But I didn't choose my father. I didn't choose his betrayal. And I certainly didn't choose to have a price on my head. No, but you chose to accept my cousin's protection. Isabella moved closer, studying me like a puzzle she couldn't solve. Why? What do you really want from this arrangement? The question hung in the air, weighted with suspicion. I could feel Dante watching me, waiting to see how I'd respond. Honestly, I met Isabella's eyes. I want to survive. I want the freedom to live my life without constantly looking over my shoulder. And yes, I want revenge on the man who threw me away the moment my past became inconvenient. Marcus Hartwell. Isabella's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. The Golden Boy District Attorney candidate. I've seen his campaign ads, all family values and righteous justice. He rejected you? Because his mother did research on my background. The words tasted bitter. Apparently my father's sins make me unfit for the Hartwell family name. Isabella exchanged a glance with Dante, something passing between them that I couldn't read. Then she turned back to me, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps I was hasty in my judgment. She walked to the bar, poured herself an espresso from the machine there. A woman scorned with intimate knowledge of the Hartwell family could be quite useful. Arya isn't a weapon for you to deploy, Dante said sharply. No, She's a weapon you're deploying. Isabella took a sip of her espresso. I'm simply suggesting we make sure she's properly armed. I looked between them, trying to follow the undercurrent of their conversation. What does that mean? It means, Isabella said, setting down her cup, that if you're going to be Dante's fiancé, you need to look the part. We have a charity gala tomorrow night, the Winter Foundation Ball. Everyone who matters will be there, including Marcus Hartwell and his family. My stomach dropped. Tomorrow night? That's too soon. It's perfect timing. Isabella's smile was sharp. The news of your relationship with Dante needs to break in exactly the right way. Not through tabloids or gossip, but through you appearing on his arm at the most prestigious event of the season. I don't have anything to wear to something like that. You will. I'm taking you shopping this morning. Isabella moved toward the door, then paused. And Aria? If you're serious about this arrangement, you need to understand something. The moment you step into our world as Dante's woman, you become a target for everyone who wants to hurt him. Every rival family, every ambitious underboss, every enemy he's made in 15 years of ruling this city. The weight of her words settled over me like a shroud. She already knows the risks, Dawn said quietly. She accepted them last night. Knowing and surviving are different things. Isabella's gaze softened slightly, the first hint of something other than hostility. My cousin has many enemies, girl, and most of them would love nothing more than to watch him care about someone just so they can take that person away. Like they did with Luca, I said softly. The room went deadly silent. Isabella's expression shuddered, and Dante's jaw tightened until I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. Get dressed, Isabella finally said, her voice carefully. Neutral. We leave in 30 minutes, and bring your armor, because you're going to need it. She left without another word, the door closing with a soft click that felt like a gunshot. I turned to Dante, who was staring at the city below with an intensity that felt like violence waiting to happen. I'm sorry, I said. I shouldn't have mentioned. You're right to mention it. He turned to face me, and the rawness in his eyes stole my breath. Luca died because I failed to protect him, because I underestimated our enemies and overestimated my control. He moved closer, each step deliberate, until we were separated by inches. I won't make that mistake with you, Aria. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, you will survive this. His hand rose to cut my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness, even if it destroys me in the process. The promise hung between us, terrible and beautiful. And I realized with sudden, terrifying clarity that Dante Moretti wasn't just offering protection, he was offering obsession. And I was already too far gone to refuse. Shopping with Isabella Moretti was like being inducted into a secret society I hadn't known existed. We moved through Manhattan's most exclusive boutiques with an entourage, 2 bodyguards, who looked like they could bench press cars, and a stylist named Margot, who spoke in rapid-fire French and treated my body like a sculpture that needed perfecting. No, the emerald makes her look sallow. Try the sapphire, it will bring out her eyes. Isabella circled me like a shark, her earlier hostility replaced with surgical precision. And we need something that says, untouchable, but also clearly being touched by Dante Moretti. I stood on a pedestal in a fitting room that cost more per square foot than my apartment, wearing a gown that probably required a mortgage to purchase. The sapphire silk clung to every curve, the neckline dipping low enough to be suggestive without being vulgar. This is insane, I muttered, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me was a stranger, elegant, dangerous, someone who belonged in Dante's world. This is survival. Isabella appeared behind me in the mirror, adjusting the gown straps with practiced efficiency. You understand that tomorrow night isn't just about revenge, don't you? It's about sending a message to every family in New York that you are under Moretti protection. That touching you means war. I'm bait. You're a statement. Her eyes met mine in the reflection. There's a difference. Bait gets sacrificed. A statement gets protected at all costs. Something in her voice made me turn to face her directly. You lost someone too, to this life. Isabella's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing grief so deep it could drown. My husband, 5 years ago. Car bomb meant for Dante that took the wrong vehicle. The air left my lungs. Isabella, don't. She stepped back, rebuilding her walls with visible effort. I'm telling you this so you understand. Caring about someone in our world is a weapon our enemies will use without hesitation. Dante's already making himself vulnerable by claiming you. The least you can do is make it count. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression hardened. "Get dressed. We need to move. Now." The urgency in her voice sent ice through my veins. "What's wrong?" "The Calabrese family just put out a call. They're offering double the bounty on you, 10 million, payable immediately upon proof of death." We were back in the SUV within 3 minutes. The shopping bags forgotten, as Isabella barked orders in Italian to the driver. The city blurred past, familiar streets suddenly feeling like enemy territory. "Does Dante know?" I asked, hating how my voice shook. "He knows. He's handling it." Isabella's fingers flew across her phone screen. "But 10 million is enough to make even loyal soldiers reconsider their allegiances. We need to get you back to the penthouse before—" The explosion shattered the air before she could finish. Our SUV swerved violently as something detonated behind us, close enough that I felt the shockwave, saw the fireball reflected in the windows. My head cracked against the seat, stars bursting behind my eyes. "Drive," Isabella shouted. "Don't stop for anything." Through the rear window, I saw the wreckage of a sedan, the one that had been following us. Someone had just killed our tail vehicle. "They're protecting us?" I gasped. "No, they're eliminating witnesses." Isabella pulled a gun from her purse with terrifying casualness. "The hit's already started. They'll try to box us in, force us into a kill zone." As if on cue, 2 motorcycles appeared on either side of our SUV. The riders wore helmets, but I could see the weapons holstered at their sides. Isabella lowered her window, raised her gun. "Hold on to something." The gunshots were impossibly loud in the confined space. One motorcycle swerved and crashed. The other accelerated, pulling ahead of us. "He's going for the tires." The driver started. Then Dante's voice crackled through the SUV's speakers, cold as death itself. "Isabella, status. 2 hostiles, 1 down. We're 3 minutes from the garage." Isabella's hands were steady as she reloaded. "Where are you?" "Right behind you. Don't slow down." I twisted in my seat to look through the rear window. A black motorcycle was weaving through traffic behind us. The rider's movements fluid, predatory. Even with the helmet obscuring his face, I knew that body, that presence. Dante had come for me himself. The second motorcycle ahead of us opened fire. Bullets sparked off our reinforced windshield, spiderwebbing the glass but not penetrating. Our driver jerked the wheel, smashing into a parked car to avoid the worst of it. Then Dante was there, his motorcycle screaming past us. He pulled alongside the shooter with suicidal precision, and I watched in horror as he reached out, grabbed the other rider's handlebar and yanked. The hostile motorcycle went down in a shower of sparks. Dante kept going, pulling ahead to lead us through the chaos. "He's completely insane," I breathed. "He's completely yours," Isabella corrected, something almost like approval in her voice. "Most men in his position would send soldiers. Dante always shows up himself when it matters." We careened into the underground garage, tires squealing against concrete as we spiraled down to level 13. The moment we stopped, Dante was there, ripping open my door with barely controlled violence. "Are you hurt?" His hands were on me before I could answer, checking for injuries with thorough efficiency. "Did they touch you?" "I'm fine, Dante, I'm fine." He pulled me against his chest, his heart hammering beneath my cheek. For a moment, he just held me, his breath ragged against my hair. 10 million, he said finally, his voice rough. "They want you dead badly enough to bankrupt themselves trying." "Why?" "My father turned witness 15 years ago. Why does it still matter?" Dante pulled back enough to meet my eyes, and what I saw there made my breath catch. Not just anger, fear. Real, visceral fear for my safety. Because you're Paolo Santoro's only weakness left alive. While you exist, there's a chance he might surface to protect you. And every family he destroyed wants him to watch you die first. The words hit like bullets. I'd always known my father's betrayal had consequences. I'd never understood that I was living collateral, a standing invitation for him to expose himself. "So I'm not just a target," I whispered. "I'm bait for him too." "Yes." Dante's hands framed my face, forcing me to hold his gaze. "Which is why, from this moment forward, you don't leave my sight. Not for shopping, not for the gala, not for anything. Where I go, you go. Understand? That's not protection, that's imprisonment. That's survival." His thumb brushed my lower lip, and electricity sparked down my spine. "And maybe it's selfish, but I'd rather have you alive and angry than free and dead." The elevator doors opened. Dante didn't let go of me as we entered, his body a shield between me and the world. Isabella and the guards followed, but they might as well have been ghosts. All I could feel was Dante, his heat, his presence, the absolute certainty in his touch. What if I can't do this? The words escaped before I could stop them. What if I'm not strong enough for your world? The elevator rose through floors of darkness. Dante's arms tightened around me. Then I'll be strong enough for both of us, he said simply. Until you remember that you're Paolo Santoro's daughter. And whatever else he was, your father was the most ruthless strategist I ever met. I'm nothing like him. No. Dante's lips brushed my temple, the gesture so unexpected it stole my breath. You're better, because you chose to save lives instead of taking them. But that survival instinct, that steel spine, that's all his. And it's all yours. The elevator opened onto the penthouse. Dante finally released me, but his hand found mine, fingers lacing together with devastating intimacy. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow night, the entire city will be watching, and I need you to show them exactly who you are. And who am I? His smile was dark, promising, terrifying. Mine, completely, undeniably, dangerously mine. The word echoed through me like a brand, like a promise, like a curse I didn't want to break. And somewhere in the space between fear and desire, I realized I was starting to believe him. I found Dante at the piano at 2 a.m. I'd tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw motorcycles and gunfire, and the wreckage of what my life had become in less than 48 hours. Finally, I gave up and padded barefoot into the living room, drawn by the sound of music drifting through the darkness. He sat at the grand piano in nothing but dress pants and an undershirt, his jacket and tie discarded somewhere. The city lights painted him in silver and shadow as his fingers moved across the keys, with surprising gentleness playing something slow, haunting, heartbreakingly beautiful. I recognized it after a moment. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. My mother used to play it. You're awake? Dante said without stopping, without turning to look at me. So are you. I moved closer, drawn by the music and the unexpected vulnerability of seeing him like this, unguarded, alone, creating beauty with the same hands that had destroyed a man on a motorcycle this afternoon. I didn't know you played, my mother insisted. She said music was the only honest language left in our world. His fingers stumbled slightly, hitting a wrong note. He cursed softly in Italian. I'm out of practice. It's beautiful. It's a lie. But he kept playing, the melody winding through the penthouse like smoke. Everything in my life is a performance, aria. The ruthless boss, the devoted son, the protective cousin. Even this playing piano in the middle of the night is just another mask. I sat beside him on the bench, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. What are you really, then? Under all the masks? His hands stilled on the keys. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he started playing again, something different, improvised, discordant, like he was searching for notes that didn't exist. I'm tired, he said finally. I'm so fucking tired of holding everything together, of making decisions that get people killed, of being responsible for hundreds of lives that depend on me, never showing weakness. The rawness in his voice cracked something open in my chest. After Luca died, he continued, his eyes fixed on the keys, I told myself I'd never care about anyone that much again, never give our enemies another target. I built walls so high nothing could get through. His jaw tightened. And then you appeared in front of me in the rain, looking at me like I was either salvation or damnation, and every wall I built started crumbling. Dante, I should send you away. His hands crashed down on the keys, creating a harsh, jarring chord. Lock you in witness protection somewhere far from here, somewhere my enemies can't reach you. It would be safer, smarter. But you won't. No. He turned to face me finally, and the intensity in his eyes was overwhelming. Because I'm selfish. Because when I saw those bullets aimed at you today, I felt something I haven't felt since Luca died. Fear. Real, paralyzing fear that I might lose something irreplaceable. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely breathe. You barely know me. I know enough. His hand lifted, fingers brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. I know you asked about civilian casualties while assassins were chasing us. I know you stood up to Isabella this morning when most people are terrified to even meet her eyes. I know you play with your mother's ring when you're nervous, that thin gold band you wear on your right hand. I looked down, realizing he was right. I'd been unconsciously spinning the ring, my mother's only piece of jewelry I'd kept. I know, Dante continued, his voice dropping to barely a whisper, that you smell like vanilla and something else antiseptic, maybe. From the hospital, clinical and sweet at the same time, which somehow fits you perfectly. Stop. The word came out broken. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because this isn't real. This is an arrangement protection in exchange for revenge. We're using each other. Are we? His thumb traced my lower lip, the same gesture from this morning, but weighted now with something deeper. Because it feels pretty fucking real when I can't sleep thinking about whether you're safe. When I rode a motorcycle through midtown traffic to reach you because sending soldiers wasn't enough, I should have pulled away. Should have reinforced the boundaries between us, reminded him and myself that this was temporary. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my eyes closing. This is a mistake, I whispered. Probably the biggest one I've ever made. His other hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. Tell me to stop, Arya. Tell me to send you away. To keep this professional. To remember that you're only here because you had nowhere else to go. I opened my eyes, meeting his gaze directly. I can't. Why not? Because I'm tired too. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I'm tired of being judged for my father's sins. Tired of being careful and controlled and appropriate. Tired of men like Marcus who want me until I become inconvenient. I'm not Marcus. Dante's voice was rough, almost angry. I don't run from inconvenient truths. I own them. I weaponize them. And Arya, you are the most dangerous, inconvenient truth I've ever encountered. Because of whom I know. Father is? Because of who you are. His forehead pressed against mine, our breaths mingling in the small space between us. You make me want things I swore I'd never want again. Safety for someone other than myself. A future that isn't just revenge and blood. A reason to come home that matters. My hands found his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath my palms. We can't do this. It's too complicated, too dangerous. Everything about my life is dangerous. His lips brushed my temple, feather-light, devastating. But you're the first thing in 15 years that's felt worth the risk. I should have been stronger. Should have remembered that this man was using me for revenge. That I was using him for protection. That anything real between us was impossible. Instead, I tilted my face up, closing the last inches between us. The kiss started gentle questioning, almost hesitant, as if we were both afraid the other might shatter. His lips were softer than I expected, moving, against mine with careful precision. But then I made a sound, something between a sigh and a surrender, and everything changed. Dante's control snapped like a wire pulled too tight. His hands tightened in my hair, and the kiss turned hungry, desperate. Like he was trying to consume every doubt and fear and wall I'd built around my heart. I kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring 15 years of loneliness and rejection and survival into the press of my lips against his. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, his eyes were dark with something that looked like wonder and terror combined. Tomorrow night, he said roughly, when we walk into that gala, everyone will be watching, judging, waiting for us to fail. I know. They'll say terrible things about you, about us. The press will tear you apart. I know. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. And I'm still going to claim you in front of all of them. I'm going to make it clear that you're mine, and anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me first. That's the deal we made. No. He kissed me again, softer this time, achingly tender. The deal was protection. This is something else entirely. What is it? Dante's smile was sad, beautiful, terrifying. A promise I have no right to make. A future I can't guarantee. A feeling I swore I'd never let myself have again. He didn't say the word. Neither did I. But it hung between us anyway. Dangerous and inevitable and absolutely impossible to ignore. We should sleep, I finally managed. Big day tomorrow. Stay here. His arms tightened around me. Just for tonight. Let me hold you while I still can. I knew I should refuse. Knew this was crossing a line we couldn't uncross. But I was so tired of being alone. So tired of being strong. So I let Dante pull me against his chest. Let him wrap his arms around me like a fortress. Let myself feel safe for the first time in 15 years. And somewhere between the piano and the dawn, I fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat, steady and sure beneath my cheek. Tomorrow, we'd face the wolves together. Tonight, We were just two broken people finding shelter in each other's arms. The Winter Foundation Ball was everything I'd feared and nothing I'd expected. The Plaza Hotel glittered like a cathedral dedicated to wealth and power. Chandeliers dripped crystal light over women in gowns that cost more than annual salaries. Men in tuxedos discussing million-dollar deals like they were ordering coffee. Everywhere I looked, I saw predators in evening wear, assessing, calculating, waiting for weakness. And I walked in on Dante Moretti's arm, wearing the sapphire gown that transformed me into someone I barely recognized. "Breathe," Dante murmured against my ear, his hand firm at the small of my back. "You look like a queen. Act like one. I feel like an imposter." "Good. So does everyone else here." His lips curved into a dangerous smile. "The trick is making them believe you belong more than they do." We descended the grand staircase, and I felt the moment every eye in the ballroom locked onto us. Conversation stuttered. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. The weight of their attention was suffocating. Then I saw Marcus. He stood near the bar with his parents, Judge Hartwell, silver-haired and distinguished, his mother, Patricia, dripping in pearls and disapproval. Marcus's mouth fell open when he saw me, shock and something else flickering across his face. Longing, maybe. Regret. Too late. "There they are," Dante said softly. "Ready to make them bleed?" I lifted my chin, channeling every ounce of strength I possessed. "Absolutely." We moved through the crowd like a storm, people parting before us. Dante's reputation preceded him. I heard whispers tracking our progress, felt the mixture of fear and fascination we generated. Some looked at me with pity, others with envy, a few with outright hostility. Isabella appeared at our side, stunning in crimson. "The Calabrese family is here. North corner, trying very hard to look unbothered by your presence." "Let them try." Dante's hand tightened possessively on my waist. "Where's our reporter?" "Vanessa Chen from the Times. She'll approach in exactly 3 minutes." Isabella's smile was sharp. "I suggested she might want an exclusive on New York's most surprising new couple." My stomach clenched. This was it, the moment our arrangement became public, became real in a way that couldn't be undone. "Dante Moretti." The voice came from behind us, smooth and cultured and poisonous. "What an unexpected pleasure." We turned. Judge Hartwell stood there with Marcus at his side, both wearing expressions of polite hostility. "Judge." Dante's voice was pure ice. "I'd say the pleasure is mutual, but we both know I'd be lying. Still holding that grudge, I see." The judge's eyes flicked to me, and his lip curled slightly. "Miss Santoro." Or, "Is it Rivers now? So hard to keep track of all your identities." The barb hit exactly where he intended. I felt Dante's entire body tense, violence coiling beneath his civilized exterior. "It's Aria," I said before Dante could respond, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "And I prefer to go by my chosen name rather than my father's mistakes. Not all of us are comfortable living in the shadow of our family's sins." The implication hung in the air like a grenade. Judge Hartwell's expression darkened. "Careful, young lady. You're speaking to a man who signed a warrant that killed an innocent person." Dante's voice cut through like a blade. "Or did you forget about Luca Moretti? 24 years old. Artist. Never convicted of a single crime. Shot in the back while trying to run from a raid based on fabricated evidence." The temperature around us dropped 20 degrees. People nearby went silent, listening. "That was investigated and cleared," Judge Hartwell said stiffly. "A tragic accident. But an accident." Dante smiled, and it was terrifying. How convenient. Just like it's an accident that the witness who provided that fabricated evidence disappeared 3 days later, or that the officer who shot my brother was transferred to Florida and given early retirement with full benefits. Marcus stepped forward, his face flushed. "You can't just accuse my father of— I can accuse him of whatever I want, and I can prove it." Dante's attention shifted to Marcus, and I saw the exact moment he prepared to strike. "Tell me, Marcus, does your district attorney campaign know about your father's creative interpretation of justice? Or about how you dumped your girlfriend the moment her past became politically inconvenient?" Marcus's eyes widened. "That's not Aria. You know it wasn't like that. Don't." The word came out harder than I intended. "Don't pretend you cared about anything except your reputation. You looked at me and saw a liability. Dante looked at me and saw a person worth protecting." "He's using you." Marcus's control cracked. "Can't you see that? He's using you to get revenge on my family." "Maybe." I stepped closer to Dante, feeling his arm wrap around me like armor. But at least he's honest about it. At least he doesn't pretend to love me while calculating how much my presence costs him. Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. Behind him, Patricia Hartwell's face was a mask of fury. Well, a new voice cut through the tension. A woman in her 50s, perfectly coiffed, holding a reporter's notebook. This is quite the reunion. Vanessa Chen, New York Times. Mr. Moretti, would you care to comment on your relationship with Miss Rivers? Dante's smile was pure, calculated charm. I'd be delighted. Arya and I met 2 days ago under unusual circumstances. She was ending a relationship with someone who didn't deserve her, and I was fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time. How romantic, Vanessa said dryly. And the speed of your engagement? When you know, you know. Dante turned to me, and the look in his eyes was so convincing I almost believed it myself. I've spent 15 years building an empire. But what's the point of power if you have no one worth sharing it with? The words should have felt scripted. Instead, they felt dangerously close to truth. Miss Rivers. Vanessa turned to me. How do you respond to critics who say you're trading one powerful man for another? The question was a trap. I could feel everyone watching, waiting for me to stumble. I'd say they're not entirely wrong, I replied, meeting her eyes steadily. But there's a difference between a man who wants to own you and a man who wants to protect you. Marcus saw my father's past and ran. Dante saw it and stepped forward. That tells me everything I need to know about who's worth my trust. Vanessa's eyebrows rose. Strong words. Mr. Hartwell, care to respond? But before Marcus could speak, a commotion erupted near the entrance, shouting, screaming, the sound of shattering glass, then gunshots. Everything happened at once. Dante shoved me behind him, his body a shield. Isabella appeared from nowhere, gun already drawn. Security personnel rushed toward the entrance, where smoke was beginning to fill the foyer. Calabrese, Isabella hissed. They're making their move. Get her out. Dante's voice was pure command. Now, Isabella, back exit through the kitchen. I'm not leaving you. I grabbed his arm, terror flooding through me. He turned, cupped my face with both hands. Listen to me. They're here for you, which means they're expecting me to protect you personally. Isabella will get you out while I draw their attention. That's suicide. That's strategy. He kissed me hard, fast, desperate. Trust me, Arya. I've survived worse than this. Dante, go, now. Isabella's hand closed around my wrist, pulling me toward a side door. I looked back once, seeing Dante stride toward the chaos with absolute confidence, seeing Marcus and his father retreating in the opposite direction, seeing the smoke and panic and violence erupting in the center of the glittering ballroom. Then Isabella yanked me through the door, and we were running through kitchen corridors that smelled of catering and fear. He'll be fine, Isabella said, though her voice was tight with worry. He's survived 20 assassination attempts. This is just another Tuesday for Dante. We burst out into an alley where a car was already waiting. Isabella shoved me inside, then climbed in beside me. Drive. Don't stop until we reach the safe house. As the car accelerated into the night, I twisted to look through the rear window. The Plaza Hotel blazed with lights and chaos, and somewhere inside, Dante was facing down enemies who wanted me dead. I'd promised him trust. Now I had to live with the consequences, even if it killed me. The safe house was a brownstone in Brooklyn, nondescript, from the outside, fortified like a bunker within. Isabella paced the living room like a caged animal, her phone pressed to her ear, speaking rapid Italian to whoever was on the other end. I sat on the edge of a leather sofa, still wearing the sapphire gown, my hands shaking so badly I had to clench them into fists. It had been 43 minutes since we left the plaza. 43 minutes of silence from Dante. He's fine, Isabella said for the 5th time, though she didn't sound convinced. If something had happened, we'd know. The family would have called. Her phone buzzed. She answered before the first ring finished. Talk to me. I watched her face, trying to read every micro-expression. Her jaw tightened, her eyes closed briefly. Then she exhaled, and some of the tension left her shoulders. Understood. We're secure. She ended the call and turned to me. He's alive, wounded, but alive. They're bringing him here. Relief and terror crashed over me in equal measure. How? Badly wounded? Gunshot to the shoulder. He stayed behind to make sure you got out, then fought his way through 3 Calabrese soldiers. Something like reluctant admiration crossed her face. He killed 2. The 3rd escaped. I stood, my legs unsteady. When will he? The door burst open. 4 men carried Dante inside. His white shirt soaked crimson, his face pale but his eyes sharp and aware. When his gaze found mine, something in his expression cracked. Arya, my name was a prayer and a curse. You're safe. I'm safe? You're bleeding. I rushed forward, my nurse's training overriding everything else. Get him on the table. Now. Isabella, I need medical supplies. Already here. She gestured to a cabinet. We keep the safe houses stocked for situations like this. The men lowered Dante onto the dining table. He hissed in pain but didn't cry out. His control absolute even now. I grabbed scissors and started cutting away his shirt, revealing the wound through and through. In his left shoulder, bleeding but not arterial. You're lucky, I said, my hands moving with practiced efficiency as I assessed the damage. Another inch to the right and it would have hit your subclavian artery. You'd have bled out before reaching the car. Lucky is my middle name. He tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. How bad? Bad enough. I need to clean it, check for fragments, then suture both entry and exit wounds. I looked at Isabella. Do you have any local anesthetic? We have whiskey. That'll have to do. I grabbed the bottle she offered, poured it over my hands to sterilize them, then met Dante's eyes. This is going to hurt. I've had worse. I know. I can see the scars. My fingers traced old wounds on his chest, bullet holes, knife marks, a jagged line across his ribs that looked like it should have killed him. How are you still alive? Spite, mostly. He caught my hand, pressed it against his heart. And lately, better reasons. The moment was too intimate, too raw. Isabella cleared her throat. I'll give you privacy. But Dante the Calabre's attack wasn't opportunistic. Someone inside the plaza gave them our exact location and timeline. We have a leak. Dante's expression went cold. Find them. I don't care who they are or how long they've been with the family. Find them and bring them to me. Isabella nodded and left, taking the guards with her. Suddenly, we were alone. Me in my ruined gown, him bleeding on a table, the weight of violence and survival pressing down on us both. I focused on the wound, using tweezers to check for fabric or debris. Dante watched me work, his breathing controlled despite what must have been excruciating pain. You're good at this, he said quietly. I'm a trauma nurse. This is what I do. I found a small fabric fragment, removed it carefully. Though usually in a hospital with proper equipment, not a Brooklyn safe house with whiskey as anesthetic. Sorry for the inconvenience. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Don't make jokes. You almost died tonight because of me. I almost died tonight because the Calabrese family are idiots who thought attacking a charity gala was good strategy. He winced as I began suturing. This isn't your fault, Arya. Isn't it? The bounty is on my head. They're hunting me because of my father. They're hunting you because they're cowards who can't accept that Paolo Santoro outplayed them 15 years ago. His hand found mine again, bloody fingers tangling with mine. And I chose to protect you. That makes this my fight, not your burden. I looked down at our joined hands, his stained with violence, mine trying to heal it. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Why? The question I'd been holding back finally escaped. Why did you really claim me, Dante? And don't tell me it's just revenge on the Hartwells or repaying a debt to my father. There's something else. Something you're not saying. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice raw with exhaustion and pain, and something that sounded like confession. Because when I saw you standing in that rain, looking lost and defiant and so fucking brave despite everything crumbling around you, I saw myself 15 years ago, right after Luca died, when I wanted to burn the entire world down because the pain was too much to bear alone. My hands stilled on the suture. And I thought, he continued, his eyes locked on mine, if I could save you, if I could keep you alive, and give you a chance to build a life that wasn't defined by your father's sins, maybe it would mean Luca's death wasn't completely meaningless. Maybe I could protect someone else's family the way I failed to protect my own. Tears blurred my vision. That's not fair to yourself. Luca's death wasn't your fault, wasn't it? His laugh was bitter, broken. I was supposed to be with him that night, but I had a meeting I couldn't miss, so I sent him, alone. I chose business over family, and he paid the price. Dante. And then your father saved my life 2 weeks later, and I've spent 15 years wondering if that was some kind of cosmic trade. Luca's life for mine. If I deserved to survive when he didn't. The confession hung between us, raw and devastating. I set down the needle and thread, my hands trembling. "Your brother's death was a tragedy," I said softly. "But it wasn't a trade, and you surviving doesn't make you guilty. It makes you responsible for honoring his memory by living a life worth the sacrifice." "Is that what you tell yourself? About your father leaving?" The question was a knife in an old wound. "I tell myself that I'm not responsible for his choices, that I can build a life separate from his legacy. But honestly," I met his eyes, "most days I don't believe it. Most days I wake up feeling like damaged goods, like anyone who gets close to me will eventually see what Marcus saw and run. I'm not running. You got shot tonight. And I'd do it again." He sat up despite my protests, his good hand cupping my face. "You need to understand something, Arya. I've built my entire adult life on control, on strategy, on never letting emotions override logic. And then you appeared, and suddenly I'm making reckless decisions, putting myself in danger, feeling things I swore I'd never feel again." "What things?" His thumb brushed away a tear on my cheek. "Hope, protectiveness, fear of losing something precious." He paused, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Something that feels dangerously close to love." The word detonated between us like a bomb. "You can't," I breathed. "We barely know each other. This is just adrenaline and proximity, and what if it's not?" His forehead pressed against mine. "What if this is real, Arya? What if we're both so damaged and broken that we're the only ones who can understand each other? Then we're doomed." But even as I said it, my hands were sliding into his hair, pulling him closer. "Because your world will destroy us both. Probably." His lips brushed mine, gentle despite the violence still coating his skin. "But I'm willing to risk it if you are." I should have said no, should have remembered that this arrangement was temporary, that caring about Dante Moretti was a death sentence waiting to happen. Instead, I kissed him back, tasting blood and whiskey and desperation, and let myself fall completely into the beautiful disaster we were creating together. Outside, the city howled with danger. Inside, two broken people found something worth fighting for, even if it killed us both. I woke to the sound of Dante's breathing, steady and deep beside me. We'd fallen asleep on the safe house couch after I'd finished patching him up, him sitting upright to avoid putting pressure on his shoulder, me curled against his uninjured side. Sometime during the night, he'd shifted, wrapping his good arm around me like even unconscious. He needed to protect me. Dawn light filtered through the heavy curtains, painting everything in shades of gold and shadow. I stayed perfectly still, afraid to break whatever fragile peace we'd found in the darkness. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Once, twice, insistent. Dante stirred, his hand tightening on my waist before his eyes opened. "Don't move," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Not yet. Your phone can wait." He pressed his lips to my temple, the gesture so tender it made my chest ache. 5 more minutes. Give me 5 more minutes before the world crashes back in. I knew we didn't have 5 minutes. Knew that Isabella was probably on the other end of that call with information about the mole, or the Calabrese family, or the next threat waiting to destroy us. But I was selfish enough to want those minutes too. "Okay," I whispered. 5 minutes. We stayed tangled together, breathing in sync, as the city woke up outside. These stolen moments felt more precious than anything I'd ever had, more real than my relationship with Marcus, more honest than any connection I'd built while hiding my past. The phone stopped buzzing, started again immediately. Dante cursed softly, reaching for it with obvious reluctance. "Moretti." I watched his expression shift as he listened, going from relaxed to alert to absolutely lethal in the span of seconds. "When?" Pause. "How many?" Another pause. Longer. "No. Keep him alive. I want to ask him questions personally." He ended the call, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. "They found the mole," I said, not a question. "Yes, Antonio Russo. He's been with our family for 12 years. Dante's voice was ice. "The Calabrese paid him $2 million to provide intel on your location and security protocols. Betrayal. It never stopped hurting, no matter how many times you experienced it. What happens now? Now I make an example." He stood carefully, favoring his injured shoulder. "Antonio will tell me everything he knows about Calabrese operations. Then he'll die. And I'll send his body back to them as a message. This is what happens when you come after what's mine." The casual discussion of murder should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself asking, "Can I come with you?" Dante turned, surprise flickering across his features. Arya, I need to see it. I stood, meeting his gaze directly. I need to understand exactly what your world looks like, what I'm choosing if I stay. This isn't something you can unsee. I know, and I did, but I was tired of being protected from harsh truths, tired of being sheltered while others fought battles in my name. Show me who you really are, Dante. Not the man who plays piano at midnight or makes pasta in his kitchen. Show me the monster everyone fears. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition that I was finally understanding what being with him actually meant. Get dressed, he said quietly. There's clothes in the bedroom upstairs. Something practical. The warehouse was exactly what I expected from a Mafia interrogation site. Concrete floors, metal chairs, industrial lighting that cast harsh shadows. Antonio Russo was tied to one of those chairs, his face already bloodied, his eyes wide with terror when Dante walked in. I stayed in the shadows by the door, Isabella at my side. She'd been waiting when we arrived, her expression unreadable as Dante had taken point. Antonio. Dante's voice echoed through the space, conversational despite the circumstances. 12 years you've worked for my family, ate at my table, celebrated holidays with us, and for $2 million, you betrayed all of it. I'm sorry, boss. I'm so sorry they threatened my daughter. Said if I didn't help they threatened your daughter 3 days ago. You started feeding them information 3 months ago. Dante circled the chair slowly. So let's skip the lies and move to truth. How long have you been working with the Calabrese family? Antonio's face crumpled. Since January. They approached me after my wife got sick, offered to pay her medical bills if I provided intel. And you didn't come to me? Didn't tell me you needed help? I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it, pay them back somehow. By selling out Arya's location. By helping them plan an attack that could have killed dozens of innocent people at that gala. Dante stopped directly in front of him. Your shame is going to cost you everything, Antonio. I watched Dante's face, seeing the cold calculation there, the absolute lack of mercy. This was the man who ruled New York's underworld not through fear alone, but through decisive, brutal justice. Please, Antonio sobbed. Please, my daughter is only 16. Your daughter will be taken care of. I'll make sure she has enough money to finish school, go to college, build a life. Dante's voice softened slightly. But you? You're already dead, Antonio. The only question is whether you die quickly or slowly. I'll tell you everything. The Calabrese have 6 soldiers stationed near your penthouse. 3 more watching the hospital where Arya worked. They're planning another hit tomorrow at... I already know all of this. Dante pulled a gun from his jacket with his good hand. Isabella's been monitoring their communications for 2 days. What I need to know is who else in my organization is compromised. No one. I swear, it was just me. Wrong answer. Dante raised the gun, and I realized with cold clarity that he was about to execute a man while I watched. Stop. The word left my mouth before I could think better of it. Every head turned toward me. Dante's eyes narrowed. Arya, go back upstairs. No. I stepped forward, my heart hammering but my voice steady. I said I wanted to see who you really are, so show me. But don't pretend this is about justice or protecting your family. This is about sending a message. Isn't it? Yes. Dante didn't try to deny it. This is about making sure every other potential traitor thinks twice before betraying us. Then do it. I moved closer, forcing myself to look at Antonio's terrified face. But let me ask him something first. Dante lowered the gun slightly. What? I turned to Antonio. Did you know about the bounty on my head when you gave them my location? He nodded miserably. Yes, $10 million. They said you were already dead, that it was just a matter of time, so I might as well profit from it. The words should have hurt. Instead, they clarified something I'd been struggling with since this started. Everyone thinks I'm already dead, I said quietly, looking at Dante. Everyone sees Paolo Santoro's daughter and assumes I'm doomed. Marcus did. Your own family did. Even I did. For a while. Arya. But I'm not dead. I held his gaze. I'm standing here, choosing to be part of this world, choosing you, despite knowing exactly how dark it gets. So yes, make your example. Show the Calabrese family what happens when they hunt what's yours. But don't protect me from the reality of it. The silence stretched like a wire pulled tight. Then Dante handed me the gun. If you want to understand my world, he said softly, Then you need to make a choice. You can walk away right now. I'll still protect you, still keep you safe, but from a distance. Or you can pull that trigger and cement yourself in this life forever. There's no going back after that, Arya. No return to normalcy. I stared at the weapon in my hands, feeling its weight, understanding what he was offering. Not just a test, but a doorway, one that led away from everything I'd built, everything I'd believed about myself. Antonio was crying, begging. Isabella watched with clinical interest. Dante's eyes never left mine. I thought about my father, who'd chosen betrayal. About Marcus, who'd chosen reputation. About every person who'd looked at me and seen only damaged goods. Then I thought about Dante bleeding to protect me, playing piano in the darkness, offering me honesty when everyone else offered lies. I handed the gun back. I don't need to pull the trigger to prove I'm committed, I said. But I'll stay. I'll watch. And I'll live with the consequences of loving a man who does what you're about to do. Dante's expression transformed surprise, relief, and something that looked like devotion all at once. You're sure? I'm terrified, I admitted. But I'm sure. He nodded once, then turned back to Antonio. The shot echoed through the warehouse, final and absolute. I didn't look away. And when it was over, Dante took my hand and led me out into the morning light. Both of us changed irrevocably by what we'd chosen. 3 weeks after Antonio Russo died, my father surfaced. The call came at midnight, Dante's secure line, the one only family used. I was reading in bed while he worked in his study, trying to pretend our lives had found some semblance of normalcy. The Calabrese family had gone quiet after Dante returned Antonio's body. The bounty remained, but the active hunting had stopped. We'd begun to breathe again. Then the phone rang, and everything shattered. I heard Dante's voice from the study, sharp, disbelieving, then carefully controlled. When he appeared in the bedroom doorway minutes later, his face was unreadable. Your father wants to meet with you. The words didn't make sense at first. What? Paolo Santoro. He contacted one of my intermediaries. Says he's willing to come out of hiding to see you, but only if I guarantee his safety. Dante's jaw tightened. He'll turn himself over to me afterward. He wants to end the bounties by letting the families have their revenge. I sat up slowly, my book falling forgotten to the floor. He's going to let them kill him? He says it's the only way to free you, that as long as he's alive you'll always be a target. Dante moved into the room, sat on the edge of the bed. He wants to meet tomorrow night. Neutral ground. Just you and him, with my men securing the perimeter. 15 years. 15 years of anger and abandonment, and questions that had no answers. And now he was offering himself up like a sacrifice, as if dying could somehow compensate for choosing witness protection over his family. I don't want to see him, I whispered. I know. But Arya, if he goes through with this, if he lets the families execute him, the bounty on you dies too. You'd be free, truly free, for the first time since you were 8 years old. Freedom. The word tasted like ash in my mouth, because it would be bought with my father's blood. And no matter how much I hated him, he was still the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd made terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings, who'd loved me before he destroyed everything. What do you think I should do? I asked. Dante's hand found mine, fingers lacing together with familiar intimacy. I think you should do what you need for closure. See him, hear what he has to say, decide if his sacrifice means anything to you. But Arya, his eyes held mine. Whatever you choose, it doesn't change us. I'm not protecting you because of some debt to your father anymore. I'm protecting you because I love you. The words hung in the air between us, finally spoken without qualifiers or fear. I love you too, I breathed. God help me, I do. He pulled me into his arms, careful of his healing shoulder, and held me while I cried for the girl I'd been, the woman I'd become, and the father who'd never know either version. The meeting place was a chapel in Brooklyn, abandoned, half crumbling, somehow perfect for a reunion built on broken things. I stood in the nave while Dante's men secured every entrance. Isabella waited outside with additional backup. Dante himself stood in the shadows near the altar, close enough to protect me but far enough to give us privacy. Then the door opened, and my father walked in. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, thinner, worn down by 15 years of hiding. But his eyes were the same, sharp and calculating even now, assessing me the way he'd once assessed business deals and territorial disputes. Arya, his voice cracked on my name. You're so grown up. You look like your mother. Don't. I kept my voice steady. Don't talk about her. You don't get to reminisce about the woman who died of a broken heart because you abandoned us. He flinched but didn't deny it. I know I destroyed everything. But I need you to understand I did it to keep you safe. By leaving us to face your enemies alone? By changing our names and forcing us into hiding while you got federal protection? The anger I'd buried for 15 years erupted. You were a coward, Dad. You chose the easy way out and called it sacrifice. You're right. The admission surprised me. I was a coward, but I was also a father who knew that if I stayed, they'd kill you and your mother to get to me. At least this way, you had a chance. A chance at what? Being judged for your sins my entire life? Having relationships destroyed because of your legacy? Having assassins hunt me because you resurfaced? I stepped closer, letting him see the woman I'd become without him. You want to die to free me? Fine, but don't expect me to forgive you for it. Paolo's eyes glistened. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even asking for it. I just wanted to see you one more time. To tell you that every day for 15 years, I've thought about you. Wondered who you became. Hoped you were happy. I wasn't happy. I was surviving. There's a difference. I see that now. He glanced past me to where Dante stood watching. But you found someone who fights for you the way I should have fought for your mother. That's something, at least. Don't. I shook my head. Don't try to take credit for this. You saved his life once, but that doesn't connect us. That doesn't make this some kind of full-circle redemption story. I know. Paolo reached into his jacket slowly, and I heard Dante move behind me. But my father only pulled out a worn photograph me at 7, gap-toothed and grinning, sitting on his shoulders. I kept this. Even when keeping anything from my old life was dangerous, I couldn't let go of you completely. The photograph was creased from handling, faded from time. He'd carried it with him for 15 years. Why now? I asked, my voice breaking. Why surface now, after all this time? Because I'm dying anyway. He smiled sadly. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave me 6 months, maybe less. So I figured I'd make my death mean something. Let the families have their revenge, end the bounties, give you a chance at a real life. The revelation knocked the air from my lungs. You're dying? We're all dying, sweetheart. I'm just doing it on a schedule. He moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. I can't undo the past. Can't be the father I should have been. But I can give you a future. That's worth something, isn't it? I wanted to hate him, wanted to hold on to my anger like armor. But standing there in that broken chapel, looking at this broken man who'd once been my whole world, I felt something else entirely: grief for what we'd lost, and acceptance that some things couldn't be repaired. It's worth something, I whispered. But it's not enough. It'll never be enough. I know. He held out the photograph. Keep this. Remember that once, before I ruined everything, I loved you more than my own life. I took the photograph with shaking hands. Behind me, I felt Dante's presence like an anchor. What happens now? I asked. Paolo smiled, genuinely this time. Now I meet with the families, make my confession, pay my debts, and you get to live without my shadow hanging over you. I don't need you to die for me. No, but I need to die for you. There's a difference. He stepped back, heading toward the door. Then he paused, looking back one last time. He's good for you. The Moretti boy. He has his father's strength but his mother's heart. Don't let him go, Arya. Men like that are rare in our world. I won't. Good. Paolo smiled. Your mother would be proud of the woman you became. And for what it's worth, so am I. Then he was gone, walking out into the night where Isabella and Dante's men waited to escort him to his chosen execution. I stood there, clutching the photograph, feeling Dante's arms wrap around me from behind. Are you okay? He murmured against my hair. No, but I will be. I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. Take me home, Dante. Our home. The penthouse? The penthouse? Wherever you are. I touched his face, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd given me back my life. That's home now. 6 months later, we stood on the penthouse balcony, watching the sunset paint Manhattan in shades of gold and crimson. The bounties were gone. The families had their bay. Revenge Paolo Santoro had died on his own terms. And with him, the last connection to his betrayal. I'd returned to nursing, though now at a private hospital that catered to Dante's world, treating gunshot wounds and knife injuries without asking questions. Marcus had lost his DA election in a scandal involving his father's judicial misconduct. Judge Hartwell was under investigation. The Hartwell family name was ruined. And I was free, truly free, for the first time in my life. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked, his arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." I laced my fingers through his. "That sometimes the darkest paths lead to the brightest destinations." Very philosophical for a Thursday evening. I laughed, turning to kiss him. "Shut up and enjoy the sunset, Moretti." "Yes, ma'am." We stood there as the city darkened around us. Two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other's damaged edges. The world still thought we were a scandal, the Mafia boss and the traitor's daughter. But we knew the truth. We were survivors, fighters, two people who'd looked at darkness and chosen love anyway, and that was enough.